Okay, I'm here for another episode of Reflections, and my guest for this one is going to be Krepo, who actually was one of the people who was on the Grilled series a long time ago, but that was many, many moons ago. We've all come a long way since then, my friend. Things have changed. Okay, so here's the place I want to start. I bet this is a question no one has ever asked you, Krepo. In fact, I'm the only one who, understands you and knows your past to even dare to ask this question, Krepo. You ready? This is going to be a good one.
I'm ready.
So, in the past, you actually weren't a support player. You used to play mid, you used to play AP champions. What if Krepo had just become an AP mid player? What if he'd never become a support and the right opportunity to become a support never come on? Could it have happened?
No, I don't think so. Maybe like amateur teams, like season 1, because season 1 was horrible. Like, I managed to get along, but looking back at my career and just like looking back at what my strengths were, like the high level mechanical play, by the time end of season 2 came around or like start of season 3, I would just absolutely be slaughtered in the mid lane. So yeah, I think I got really lucky that I managed to move to support.
When people look, when I went back and I did all my articles about the old great teams and I had to look at like the formation of how they came about, what people don't realize is a lot of how teams like Gambit, it's obviously Moscow 5 at the time, and CLG.EU, and some of these teams came together was incredibly haphazard. Like some of it was just pure chance, someone was available and someone said, hey, do you want to play this qualifier with us? It wasn't like people sat down like a sports team and said, right, well, if we were going to have Froggen, we'd need this sort of player to offset it. There's none of that going on. So when you look back at CLG.EU, here's a question I have. Were there any other like weird offers you had, or ones where you could have gone to a different team or stayed in a team and that actually ended up becoming a famous team? Was there any other alternative paths that could have happened?
A lot, actually. So to touch on the part of like the haphazard team making, that's what happened. Like you would make a team with a random set of 5 people out of like the top 300 ranked players, and then you would see if it sticks, and you'll learn something along the way. Like you get better as a player, you get better as a team player. But if you don't like reach top 3 or top 4, you just disband. Like a lot of people that didn't watch League of Legends season 1 and 2 don't realize this, but like teams were just on the fly. Like how many iterations didn't we see of like Curse.EU? And everybody was just trying to make a team that could then beat the top tier teams at the time. Did that. I ended up in I started in a French team, for example, in Fureur, with like Schleia, Moops, Lune, I think Arno, who now retired. So like 4 French guys, me speaking French. Then I moved over to a team called La GG. That was me, YellOwPete. Eventually we got Snoopy in there. Plix No Shed was one of the guys. And that's where I started playing support, because we had 2 mid laners. That's how random teams were back then, and how undervalued support was as a role. We had 2 mid laners, and depending on what champion we wanted to play mid, the other guy would be shafted into support, and we would have to just pick some support that he could play. That's how it all started. And then that's where we met Snoopy initially. So that kind of takes away from the haphazard forming. Later on, eventually, CLG, before CLG got formed, I think they were under the, Jesus Christ.
Absolute Legends or something?
Even then, MTLTT. I think they were MTLTT. Okay. And they played some tournaments. It was Wicked and Froggen in a team with Lyumi, We Will Failure, and God knows, I don't even remember the jungler. Kebab, I think, was his name. And he went over to Dota later. They eventually wanted to remake the team because their bot lane didn't really get along with each other. And that was one of the reasons they wanted me and YellOwPete at the time, because me and YellOwPete were probably the only AD carry and support duo that actually didn't hate each other's guts in that era of play. So they wanted us. They got Snoopy too. Snoopy vouched for us. That's how they got through us. Like they wanted Snoopy in the team because he had then left to AAA for a tournament. So you see like every pawn is moving in this giant spiel, and then eventually we came together. Snoopy, because we previously played on a team, liked the atmosphere, brought me and YellOwPete in. I, in turn, had to fight against YellOwPete to decline another offer. At the time, we were supposed to make a team for Acer, an organization that you're probably familiar with.
Yeah,
so yeah,
good times.
Good times. So we had to make a team for Acer with Citizen Wayne and, Jesus, what was his name? Shops, I think it was.
Yeah.
So
top laner, I think.
Top laner, yeah. He was the top laner, Citizen Wayne mid. And the jungler, I can't remember who it was, but that was
that was Lyumi, wasn't it?
No, Lyumi had then moved to AD carry already.
Okay.
So we were supposed to join that team, and Pete, as he's a very nice guy. He was super loyal. So like we had that offer. We were in the almost final stages of that formation. But then CLG.EU, our absolute legends at the time, came by, and I was like, dude, we got to grab this opportunity. This is like this is way too big. Just like I begged him, like, just trust me, dude. If this falls back on us, like, I'll take all the blame. But you gotta risk it. And eventually, I managed to convince him. It was honestly towards the Acer guys, it was a dick move, you know. But sometimes you have to think about yourself, and like the roster just had way more potential. Eventually, some of those guys ended up joining Navi back in season 2, who also went to Korea for OGN. But as a long answer to that question, yeah, people would continuously reiterate their lineup with 1 or 2 new players, break up, try something new, find something that sticks, and hope to upset the 1 or 2 teams. Because back then, since there was no LCS format, the only way you could make money back then was winning tournaments. Like our salaries were, I can't say any numbers, but like even as a top tier team was below like one grand salary, right? So like, yeah, if you then remember that you actually have to pay taxes to the government, you can't live with that. So you need to win tournaments if you want to be even somewhat sustainable as a pro player.
I remember when I went back and looked into a lot of the pasts of the players, I noticed there's a funny thing, okay, where in modern day, 2 players that people who are fans always reference is they say Diamond Prox and Shy, and the reason they bring these players up, right, is because they go, oh, they were scouted, you know, when they were like just scrubs on solo queue, and I go, yeah, you have to realise, mate, everyone was back then. There were barely any pro teams, you know, there wasn't a pool of players who had experience in the play lands, so it's not, unfortunately, fans are doing that because they want to live the dream that they could be picked up tomorrow, you know.
Who was going to scout them? That's my thing, like, okay.
Exactly.
Under the assumption that Diamond Prox was scouted when he was low elo, and some guy went through all the solo queue players and saw this rough gem of bright talent that would innovate the jungle. Who the hell was that guy? We didn't even have coaches back then. Like the most successful team in Europe, we didn't even believe in coaches. Player egos were far too big. There was nobody with enough game knowledge to go in. Back then, like organizational talents weren't even needed because people were so shit at the game that the first and foremost goal was to get better at the game. So there were no coaches, there was no infrastructure. There was just 5 guys randomly making a team, haphazardly assigning a captain. Some dude hopefully knows some finance to talk to sponsors and get you something lined up so you don't get abused. And that's how it all came to be. So yeah, Diamond Prox was lower elo, but I don't believe he was scouted by a single person for the potential. He did grow up to be, you know, like one of the most influential players, but yeah, I always like frown when I see that statement. I don't think it's as accurate as many fans wanted to believe.
But here's the funny thing, because people have that storyline. When I remember a long time ago when I went back and I looked like in depth into the history of Froggen, and I literally, I mean, they might not even be on the site anymore, but I even went back and I found all the old ESL, like Go for Lols, like all the competitions he was playing in these like no-name teams.
Oh, dude.
And I thought people were exaggerating, right, when they said, oh, he was just this guy, this Danish kid who just played only in Ivia every single game. And they were right. He was just in like no-name teams of guys you've never heard of. Who was Froggen when you first met him? Did you actually know he was a good player?
I think actually my earliest memory, and I'm not sure, but I asked him one time. I remember season 1 being camped by a duo queue that came from Europe Northeast to West, and they would play Nunu top or a top lane with a Nunu jungle, and they would camp the living shit out of you all the time, constantly. And apparently one of those guys was Froggen, and then later he moved into Anivia only. And I was actually annoyed because I was almost an exclusively Anivia player as well. So like the few tournaments I did play in as like, I subbed one time for Fnatic in a Go for LoL semifinal. That was like my peak of my amateur career, and or in the final 2, and I played Anivia all the time. Like I have like over 1,000 games of Anivia like season 1. So I was annoyed at Froggen because he came by and he obviously was better at the champion. So there was my one claim to glory had gone by. But yeah, Froggen was exclusively known as this random just a guy that just was an Anivia main. One Trick Pony didn't even exist back then. It was just main, Nivea main.
When CLG.EU was made, everyone now, because Froggen's like the only member of that team who's still on like in theory, a top level team in any sense, actively playing.
Yeah.
A lot of people think, again, the problem is they view it with hindsight, so they think as though the team understood, right, well, Froggen's the star player, we're going to play around him. But at the time, Froggen was a nobody when he joined that team. He was like a talent, sure, a solo queue talent, but like Wicked, for example, was the famous player from SK.
Yeah.
What was the actual dynamic like within the team?
Wicked was by far the biggest name in that team because not only was he a player on SK previously, he also just had a bigger stream personality. And back then, the way tournament streams got viewers is when they had pro player or personality streams in them, so to say, right? If you wanted your tournament to have viewers, you needed Wicked and Hotshot. If you have them both, dude, people will watch that shit. But so Wicked was definitely the biggest name in that team. But I don't think there was any egos or like any like I'm better than you or I'm more famous than you, therefore you are worth less in CLG.EU, especially spearheaded by Snoopy. People give him a lot of shit, but like he definitely did a lot for the social atmosphere. I tried to contribute where possible. So the whole story of like CLG.EU was like a bunch of friends trying to just like make the best thing possible. Was like for the majority very true. We did get along well, both like offline and online, and yeah, it was really interesting. Just like the amount of growing up that we all had to do, including like Wicked and like Froggen, like because they were 17 when they joined. It's like almost like in that era that was young. You know, you had to travel to Korea with like a 17-year-old that probably didn't even have a credit card. Like we had to like babysit him everywhere, make sure he ate enough, you know, instead of play League all the time. So that was the good old times. But in terms of dynamic, I don't think Wicked let the fact that he was a bigger name affect the team environment at all.
When CLG.EU had this really famous playing style that everyone now knows, it's like a stereotype. You played for the late game and you picked scaling champions, you played up. Here's the funny thing, Krepo. People might not remember this now because everyone accepts that that was the style of play that the team used. It was a successful style. But because that style was associated negatively with the connotation of it being boring, you know, and they didn't try aggressively, stuff like Moscow 5 was very exciting, you know.
Yeah.
I remember I did interviews with people from CLG.EU, including you, and you guys were almost like, no, that's not how we play. Like that just, you know, it's just coincidentally some games happened to go to the late game. It's almost like you denied that was the approach of the team. Like, how did that develop in that sense? I mean, it was a lot of games went like that, right?
Hindsight has changed my perspective on that a lot. But initially, I just was risk averse, right? Like, it's just like if you don't have complete information that this play will work, don't make it. That's how we operate a lot. And because teams were so hell bent on beating us, they would just very often like overextend. And like they would force the play, right? Back then, people didn't understand how League worked. Like split pushing, no. Like I was trading into cannon minions all the time, for example. It took me until season 3 to realize that I shouldn't trade into a cannon minion. Like, I don't know. Like I was just horrible, you know. But everybody was horrible. Like minion wave control, what the hell is that? You know, split pushing. You know, take a tower off the people base. Like what the hell are you talking about? They press back, we have to press back. Like the game was just so stupid. So all you had to do was just wait for mistakes, and people would make them. Or if they don't make any mistakes, we group up and we were a better team, 5v5, because we had, at the time, better shot calling in team fights, which literally meant that we were all shouting which target we were targeting. That was shot calling at the time. Like, it was literally like Snoopy yelling, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. And then when somebody gets caught off, Froggen just starts yelling, like, you know, I don't know, Kassadin, Kassadin, Kassadin. That was our shot calling. But because it was so immature, the game at the time, that worked. Like, we were really good when we were grouped. We also had really good team comps that just played out well when we were grouped because the concept of split push didn't exist to us, and we had a hard time dealing with that early season 3. Actually, that was like the hardest counter CLG.EU has ever had to deal with, was like Fnatic split pushing, for example. And and the style in particular for me came from laning with YellOwPete. Like we were just really safe. Like try not to die, only go if you see the jungler. If there's a chance he's in the brush, probably don't go for the play. Yeah, like deep vision didn't really exist back then either. Like you had no invades, right? Junglers would start with 0 wards, get the best leash of their life, do the most standard jungle camp pathing there is in the world every game, not get punished for it. There was no deep vision, so yeah, you couldn't know where the jungle was. You had no information to play with, so you had to guess. And that leads to like a very, very safe style, I think, in hindsight. Like looking at the games now, they're horrible. Like if you open up a VOD from CLG.EU, you will be like, why are they not like split pushing top here? Like why are they leaving that tower alive? What the fuck? They're letting the late wave be frozen. Or alternatively, why are they being frozen and not roaming to solve that? Like there's so many plays that weren't just common back then, and that led, I think, in part to that playstyle.
Why, as someone who played them a lot, okay, towards the end of season 2, yeah, Moscow Fire started to lose to some of the top Asian teams. But even when they were going to the Gambit era, you know, I mean, famously they beat Blaze and Frost. There was obviously something about them that was different from other teams that made it very hard to play, especially if it was a team playing them the first time, you know. What made them so difficult to play against?
I mean, it's hard because I don't even remember like the mindset I had in these games, but thinking back, like if I hear like Moscow 5 or Gambit, it's like see hero, kill hero, like trigger happy comes to mind. Like whenever you put yourself in a situation, you imagine what the enemy would do if they were like a similar player to you, right? Well, Gambit would say, fuck that, let's just go in. They would just surprise you with decisions, do weird stuff all the time. And an example, like Damage was like the first guy to actually say like, hey, there's another side of the jungle, let's walk in and kill that guy, right? He broke the mold. Like they challenged convention and they went in, and I think that's a lot of why they worked. And at the time, they were just really good players in their roles too. As much as you can like mock Genja or mock Darien, at the time they were just doing super well. I still remember a game where Darien would like die in lane. We had a lane swap on them. He would die in lane, TP back, die again instantly. But he still managed to find a way back into the game because they didn't respect the threats, right? They would just overextend everywhere and somehow make it happen. I'm not saying they didn't have any plan, but that's how it felt sometimes. They were just very, very ignorant of risks, and it paid off. They were playing a high risk style. That's why they could snowball on you so hard as well.
In Season 2, Krepo was one of the best support players in the world. True?
Yes, I would say so.
What were your strengths? What do you think you were good at?
I was just a good team player, I think. I just try to help everybody as best as I can because I had good players around me. Like, people give YellowPete so much shit, which is really sad because he's too much of a nice guy to fight back. But he was rank 1 player in solo queue by an insane mile. I think Season 2 and even Season 3, by hundreds of elo. He was just really good at playing the game. Later on, we couldn't progress as well. But at the time, I think he was really good. I think I was good. I just don't think there was many good players. That's the difference. A lot of these talents that came up, they adapted to where the meta came to or what the standard of play was, and then they improved. And they were flexible. And I just was good at a couple of things, but then didn't really adapt all too well, I think.
Since CLG going into EG lasted 2 whole years with the same lineup.
Yeah.
And you were one of the only teams, actually, that kept the exact same lineup. I mean, even Gambit eventually made a change in that space of time when Edward left. Was there ever a time when someone actually thought of leaving, or there was going to be a roster change, and it just a last second, things got figured out and it just went back to the original? Was it ever a consideration?
No, there was no potential benching. The first roster change that ever happened was Snoopy for Shacker. For various reasons, but I think likely it had been on some of the better performance players' minds, right? If you're struggling in a team, a player like Froggen has to look at other people and be like, damn.
Sure.
And he even said that, at one point during the EGs, I was like, yeah, I think I can go to solo queue and find 5 better players than you, or 4 rather, and make.
What was the reaction if he said that? What, you're just like, damn?
Well, I've always respected his opinion. I'm like, yeah, if you think so. For me, it was I think you underestimate teamwork if you say that, or team atmosphere. I don't think it's as simple as putting 5 mechanical players together, because otherwise we would have been challenged way sooner. But that's just difference, these highly mechanical players, in general, and this is not just Froggen, or this is not even about Froggen, this is just in general, they seem to only respect people with the same amount or close to the mechanics. You see this in high elo too. If you have this really, really good player, he might be dumb as a brick, right? He may not understand where he has to be in a map, what he has to do, what split pushing, what vision is, but he may be just really good at mechanics. He will only respect mechanical players. If you talk to him, say if I talk to them, I might consider myself smart in terms of vision, map plays, but I might not have the best mechanics. I will not get the respect from those players, and that's just understandable, right?
So I think that's actually a mentality with star players in all esports games I've found. In Counter-Strike, the guys who have the best aim, unless you are the in-game leader who's kind of has figured out all the strategies and they've learned that there's a different side to the game, they tend to only respect the other skilled players. In terms of opinion and status in a team, I think that applies on other games too.
Yeah, and so it's completely understandable. When he made that statement, by the way, this was deep into the EG days. This was not CLG.EU. This was when we were struggling for a while, and it was just already in his mind, and I don't fault him for it. Looking back at what I put in at the time, I have a lot of regrets for that period of how I practiced. I put in the hours, but I wasn't practicing to improve. I was just grinding because I didn't know where my faults were, right? You just kept doing the same thing over and over and trying to get slightly better at the same thing. But in League, if you want to improve, you gotta expand, right? You gotta know different strategies, different play styles, and get good at all of them to really have an answer to every situation. So I was just not practicing, or we were not practicing efficiently. And at that time, yeah, I think the first player to really start thinking about potential changes was Froggen then. And then later on, obviously Froggen went for the new team, super team. Wicked ended up in that team. And me, Snoopy, YellOwP went to NA. And then later on, I had the similar thoughts in the NA lineup, for example. So like, I don't blame people for getting tired of a lineup or seeing no way out and thinking change is the solution, because like I was the same thing later on. Not everything is fixable, Eventually, you fall off.
One of the things about the EG era, because it was the first 2 splits of LCS, is that I always thought that the problem with that era was everyone, they still do it to this day, whoever at the end of the split wins the split, history's rewritten as though they were always the best team. No one could ever challenge them, and there was that. Whereas if you look at every split, you always had, especially in the seasons when you used to play like 28 games, you would always have periods where some team would be on a sick heater and they'd be like top of the league, and then they'd drop off. And I always thought, here's the problem, okay, as good as the system is in terms of a league aspect and the benefits it brings, if this was an open circuit, there would have been a tournament where, for example, like Curse in NA would have won one early on in the beginning of LCS, or EG might have won one when they got things together towards the end of the summer split, I think it was. We had like a sick run where you had a lot of wins, or there would have been a bunch of teams who didn't win the overall split, but if these had been 5 tournaments instead of a league, maybe one they would have won, or they would have made the final of one. How do you think EG actually would have done outside of LCS format?
Do you mean this is the European EG lineup, right?
Yeah.
Still. As a counter to that point though, what I do think, like, maybe at the time if you make a tournament, a team could in the current like form win that. But the problem with that is that I feel is the other teams would get nothing outside of top 3. They would just fucking disband. They would kick a player because they'd be mad because they lost. That happened every single tournament. So no teams would even like play together long enough to elevate the level of play. Like CLG.EU stayed at the top for so long because all the teams challenging us did so for maybe like 2 months, and then they disbanded, made a new team, run into the wall again because they had no teamwork. And that's why that's the one thing I do like about LCS is like teams are forced to train together. And if you look at some of the splits where alternate starts like 5-0 and eventually they get figured out and they can't adapt, as opposed to what if half of the teams that played against alternate there would just rage quit and make a new team, right? Alternate maybe stay on top 10. But yeah, there's pros and cons for both. As for tournament circuit, I think we were a good team at preparing for a tournament. Like, we would go leisurely, but then go hardcore for 3 weeks and practice super hard. And we kind of showed up at most tournaments we went to, mostly because we were very confident. Like, we were just comfortable at LAN environments. And I think that's actually what helped. The LCS helped for a lot of teams too, is just getting used to the stage. Like, the first LAN I played, I was garbage. Like, second one, pretty much true, but like later on, you just get so used to the LAN environment that the crowd doesn't matter to you, the viewers doesn't matter to you at all, and no longer having that edge already like puts you on the same level as your team, right? As the opposing team, right?
When we had Froggen on an episode of Summoning Insight, now people have to realise, because Froggen, it's funny, I remember when he was the guy who made that comment on Reddit where he got like minus 2,000 points where he told everyone to fuck off, where they did like a stream. He was someone where he had to polish the edges off Krepo. He had to kind of learn what a stream personality is. Now he seems like a really chill guy. But the reason I'm setting it up like that is there's certain things that Froggen is clearly quite stubborn on, and if he has his mindset on something, he might express it in quite a strong manner, okay? So when he was on Summoning Insight and we asked him about the era when CLG.EU was in Korea, he made it sound like, well, obviously we could have won because, I mean, the Koreans were all trash. They didn't even understand team fighting. We used to just wait. They'd use their ults. Our ults would be up, then we'd fight them with the ults up, and we'd be like, these guys are idiots. Was it really that extreme? And there was some pretty good Korean players still, right?
Some of them. I mean, like, gotta remember, so when we went to Korea, we got smashed, dude. The first 2 weeks, holy moly. I was like, I made a mistake. I should have not dropped out of college for this shit. And we got dumpstered, but we just kept playing. And for us, it was a breath of fresh air because in Europe at the time, if you wanted to find a scrim, that team can maybe do like 3 to 5 p.m. We got to Korea, CJ or Zubu was like, yo, do you guys want to scrim at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning? I'm like, hell yeah, dude. I want to scrim all day. Like, the environment there already was like super professional, and there were so many teams to play, especially since we were like the big shot coming in. So we just got so much experience, and I think, for team fighting wise, we would outdo them all. That was our strength. Like, that was what we were really good at, just timing it, going in. We had good communication. Like, I'm pretty talkative, Wicked's pretty talkative. Snoopy managed the map control really well. So like, he again, had a very supportive role in that meta, and he really molded that team together. And then YellOwP was just like a constant, right? No variable. So that allowed like Froggen and Wicked to be like the variables and excel in that like framework. But yeah, after like getting smashed the first 2 weeks, we improved and we started doing really well like again. That's why we were so confident going into OGN. Like we played against World Elite and in scrims too, and they never changed. Like they invented the lane swap, I think, unless Taiwanese region, according to Clement, did it too at the same time. But we never played against those teams, so they were the first team to lane swap on us. But they always did it. So the value of a lane swap is gone if you know that World Elite is always going to top, like literally every game. So the surprise factor was gone because of the scrims. So we managed to beat them too. Then we got to the semis, like got through there, and made it to the finals in the end. So yeah, we were, I think, ahead of most Korean teams at that time for sure, and we should have won OGN.
Why didn't you?
I think we got a little overconfident. We didn't cover our grounds. We like, I think Woon, he stole a red buff with Q, right? That was
Pulsefire Ezreal.
Yeah, that was the time. Was that Pulsefire already? I don't even think that was.
So.
Was it out already then? I don't even know, man. I want to like double check. You can double check this and retro this, but that was early. But yeah, like he stole come on, like he walked in and stole a red buff with Q. And I think one of those games as well, I got a red buff on Soraka because yeah, I remember Snoopy looked at Cloud Temporal's rune pages. I think that was that game, or yeah, he did that in one series. He was like, "Yo, this guy's running 1% crit. Let me run 1% crit." So when you're doing red buff, you want to get it as low as you can to make your jungler lose as little HP, right? So the red buff was on 3 auto attacks, 2 of mine and 1 of Snoopy's, which means I send mine out, it travels, he hits it, and or like the other way around. Like anyways, it was alternating. But because when I send my auto attack out, he crits the red buff with his 1% crit rune, and my auto attack steals it. So I went to lane with the red buff Soraka, and yeah, you could do shit with it. And Snoopy's behind in the jungle because we shared experience. So a lot of like bad shit happened, and we just played like complete donkeys. Like our picks didn't make sense. We randomly picked Ashe, I think, in game 3 for no reason whatsoever. I think when we had a lead in game 4, we randomly started suiciding too for no reason, just trying to be overeager to close out the series. So yeah, I think we could have won that, and that's one of the biggest regrets I have, like in esports, in hindsight, because at the time you think like, you know, whatever, we'll get him next time. That's whatever happens. Like same at Worlds, you know, you go out in semifinals, you know what, next year we will win Worlds. Like we just got unlucky, and then once you start getting smashed in like Europe and you don't even make it to Worlds, that's when you start regretting how close you really were to those titles.
Considering how many times your team made like a final or a semi-final, so many deep runs, do you ever like? Can you ever figure out like a reason as to why you didn't win that many actual titles?
Oh, you'd have to go on a case-by-case basis. OGN was close, Worlds was close. I don't know what other tournaments we made. I know we did one final against Gambit where they just figured us out. They just played way better than us. They were just simply better at the time.
ECC Poland.
Yeah, Poland, I think it was. Yeah, they were just better in the finals. As opposed to like, that's one thing I always notice. You always assume that your performance is like the standard, and you just got unlucky and you got punished. But like, you never remember the times that we got lucky. Like we could have not even made it into DreamHack, by the way. That's like one of those funny stories. DreamHack Bring Your Own Gear qualifier, for which the community supported us to go because we didn't have the funding from our organization. We had to ask the community to vote to donate about $4,000 for travel and hotel, and they raised that in under 2 hours. That was insane, by the way. That was like one of the best feelings in the world. Like we were about to plan out an entire marketing campaign how we could give back to the viewers to try and get them to donate, like play matches with CLG, commentary, like whatever we needed to get to that tournament. And they just like, okay, 2 hours done, and we were like so like insanely grateful. So we show up at DreamHack, get some random laptops from a sponsor, start playing, and in the third match out of the 4 matches we should play to get into the tournament, all best of ones, we start losing. Like we were significantly behind. So if the other team played a little better, we would have not even made it into DreamHack. We'd have never had that big upset against Moscow 5. We would have likely tilted and raged and maybe even disbanded. So like that one match could have like changed my entire life. And those are the things you never remember, right? You always like, if only like I didn't get that red buff. If only like we played a little better. You kind of forget the times where you yourself got lucky. So, but as to the question, sorry for going like ranting off topic.
That's okay. So
yeah.
So when you left, when Evil Geniuses made the decision, right? First of all, they were leaving Evil Geniuses anyway, and they were going to make Alliance, and they made this new team with Froggen and those guys. You went over to NA and you joined the Evil Geniuses that was going to be over there.
Yep.
I remember around this time. Okay, I'm not going to speak out of school here, but I remember talking to you about it and hearing interviews. And if you remember, the vibe of actually a lot of EG fans, because people like you and Snoopy were the public faces of the team, you guys who did all the interviews, even though Wicked and Froggen were obviously the star players, actually, they didn't have the same kind of relationship with the fans. So actually, I remember when this team was announced that it was breaking up, a lot of people were like, you know what, fuck Froggen and Wicked, like, those guys don't understand, like, yeah, they're mechanically good, but if you remember, you probably heard this, people said, like, but the whole shot calling aspect of EG's gone now, you know, that was Krepo, that was Snoopy, those guys are going to go to NA, and what people really thought was, right, Froggen and Wicked will fail because they won't have any mechanics, any shot calling, you know. Meanwhile, you guys will just find mechanical players and you'll make them into the new Froggen and Wicked. Okay. Now, here's the weird thing. At the time, I thought to myself, like, I think people are being a bit too harsh on Froggen and Wicked there. Like, Froggen's still going to be a pretty good player, you know. But I think that's mainly just because it sounded like maybe you can admit this. Maybe the way you characterized it was a little bit salty at the time. Like, you maybe did just kind of say it like, good luck finding people who can do that. Because obviously, to a degree, these guys were sort of saying, we don't want to play with you anymore. But here's the thing. I actually think in hindsight, you had a point there. Because if you look at Alliance, the one quality about Alliance, even when they were extremely good, was they never had good shot calling. They never really figured out even their own style and like they never really even understood when the advantage was and when it wasn't. They just tried to win with mechanical play to some degree, right? So you kind of were right to a degree, right?
Yeah, like, I mean, that aspect. Also, like, Alliance, the reason you remember it as harshly is, if I remember correctly, didn't Alliance go like 0-4?
To start the season, yeah.
And didn't we go like 3-1? I think that was the biggest point. Like, the new EG lineup at the start went 3-1, albeit like a tiny bit randomly, just relying on knowledge from previous seasons and the fact that the other teams didn't prepare, because we were practicing since relegations, made ourselves, you know, convincing relegations match, made it into the LCS, started winning immediately, and then suddenly Alliance is suffering, and then all the fans, went like that. And of course, I was a little salty. That's been my issue in a lot of like statements that I've made in the past, when just like being a little too, you know, tunnel vision on it. That's the same, like, we'll get to that later when I left Evil Geniuses. I'm sure like we'll bring that up, but at the time I can definitely understand the community perception, mostly because CLG Europe and Evil Genius later on as a team was branded as like a team, right? You have some teams that are star players plus X, but like one of our main brand things was that we were just like literally like a bunch of friends that we worked together, like that we worked as a team, you know, the longest standing lineup or one of the longest standing lineups in league history. So when that breaks and people have to choose sides, you know, when daddy and mommy divorce, people will get upset and it created like a rift, but like I don't think we really like wanted that to. It was just a really weird period because it came as a surprise to us that the split was happening. Like, I found out at Worlds at the time when I was doing the analyst desk. I heard, not from Froggen himself, like I heard from other people that Froggen was going to make his own team, for example. So, I mean, trying to like not make too many excuses for myself, but that's like partly where the salt or the bad feelings kind of originated. And like, we weren't on the best terms. Like, I respected his decision. Like, I could understand it. I just wished I would have been told, like, you know, to my face a little bit. But me and Froggen, like, we talked about that later on, like half a year later, and we like totally cleared the air. And that's why like we're still good friends right now, because I really admire like the way he grew up. I think he changed a lot. Whereas you touched on, like, he seems to like be a happy person overall now, as opposed to the, you know, rough edges back in the day. I just think that's him maturing overall. He's just more pleasant to talk to overall in general. But yeah, going back there to the question again initially, yeah, I can definitely see why the community perceived it as such, because me and Snoopy were the more vocal persons. We were also, no, I wouldn't say occupied, but more aware of our branding and social media. Like, we just made an effort to use the spotlight to grow our brands and hopefully do something with it later, you know. Whereas other players like Froggen at the time, Wicked even, were just more focused on playing. Pete didn't really care about it. Yeah.
But didn't you have a point, though? I kept saying, beyond the salt, your point was kind of valid. Like, they would need players who understood shot calling and team play aspects around them. And in many ways, I mean, you can even ask them now. They kind of admit it. That's the reason they kept changing shot caller and kept trying to make emergency swaps for players, because they never really had that in the team, despite the fact that at one point in time they did have very good mechanical players.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's also just like a part of the scene back then, right? Teams were made like the way teams are made right now, or successful teams. I feel like, look at Korea, right? How did they start? Like with a coaching staff and maybe one like key member, and then they build around that and find the bricks that they need, right? But like teams season 3 or even then, or maybe Alliance, for example, they just went to the brickyard and they found the 5 nicest looking bricks, and then they try to build a house with that. Like figured out, those bricks didn't really work together, apart from just being really good bricks, if that like makes somewhat sense. But there was no overlying like structure, no infrastructure to build up. It was literally Froggen, because his former teammates weren't the most mechanically gifted players. Like I got a lot of flack for not having the best mechanics. Snoopy got a lot of flack for not having the best mechanics. Yellow Pete in the end got more flack towards the end for not having the most solid mechanics. So yeah, what is your reaction, right? Failure is happening. What is the one constant? I have good mechanics. What I'm going to look for? Other people with good mechanics, right? Because you don't see the team atmosphere, shot calling type of thing. It's like it's more of an invisible factor. So it makes sense that Froggen went for that type of stuff. And it got him some success, but you could see that in crucial moments, it didn't really work out all that well. But they still made it farther than our lineup did, for example.
Made it to Worlds?
Yeah, made it to Worlds.
But here's the thing. Again, I'm not trying to like push an easy narrative here, but on the other side of the equation, it feels like the opposite thing happened to you guys, because you went over to NA and you tried to you thought to yourselves maybe, okay, we can get some young mechanical players, can mold them a bit. But that's also harder than it initially seems, perhaps.
We were it's hard to find players on short notice while transferring a region that want to play with. Like, NA talent is sparse, We looked a long time to find, like, players. And I think we just tried to look for the best in each role that we could possibly find and see if we could work with that. But we didn't have any infrastructure either. Like, we just realized, we hoped that me and Snoop could, like, lead it, make it another good team environment. But there were some other problems that arose from that, because for those players, again, right, like how do you get a mechanical player to respect you? Like a good young talent, you got to be good. Like what will they hate? Like these PR branded remnants of a former like good team being like used as marketing tools in your region to make the organization some money.
Do you think they resented that?
I think, and I'm like 99% sure that partly both, and this is not to point fingers because I understand it and we cleared it out, and like
sure.
I'm just like being open here. Like I don't think we had the respect from the new players, from like Pobe and Altec, to even like function in a team. And we even talked about that later. Like again, I was salty when I left, but I had a really nice conversation with Pobe Belter at Worlds when he was there with CLG, and we were in good terms again now. But like I think at the time in the house, there was no ultimate respect. Like people would just they viewed us as on our way out and themselves on their way in, right? And then it's really hard to get a good team balance, and because you can't lead if the people you're trying to lead don't respect you. And if that happens to be, or if you think that's one of your better qualities, leading, as opposed to like actual solid mechanical gameplay, then there's not as much value left, is there? So that was one of the problems I think overall in the Evil Geniuses lineup, aside from the fact that our infrastructure, like I don't want to make this an entire excuse show, like our infrastructure was just garbage.
Sure.
As well intended as it was, there was a lot of good intentions, but the execution was lacking. And I think the same thing can be said for Alliance. Like they had the tools to really find like coach, analysts, like maybe mold that team, find the right shot caller, find the one problem they could solve, but they could never really seem to like figure it out, because I ended up joining that team, right? Like later on, so I got to experience all the underlying pressure and issues that eventually manifested at the end that were just building up during the whole Alliance days. So I can most definitely tell that there were a lot of like manager aspects problems that could have been solved in the early stages that would have like saved a lot of hassle down the line.
Here's the thing, I can kind of understand why. I'll tell you, as a general trend in esports, I've noticed the players who are the most resistant to coaching are actually smart players, because the problem is they think to themselves, well, I can do whatever that coach is going to do. You know, I don't need that guy. Like I can, and they're right to a degree. At some point in time, while they were very successful, they probably did do like a mini coach role. So as a result, you see, for example, the most famous player who's probably most coach of us was Chauster. He did essentially there was no one in the world could have coached Chauster because he himself knew everything in his mind. You know, so I can understand why he would be resistant to it. But I remember in all the grilled interviews I did with your team, you're also one of the only teams I did every member actually. Every member, even into season 3, was quite adamant that listen, we don't need like one shot caller and we don't need coaches. You know, listen, we can do this like democratic shot calling thing, and we don't need coaches. We'll figure things out as a team. What changed since then?
Oh, dude, I 100% agree. Like we were actually an uncoachable team. I think CLG.EU would have not benefited from a coach because we all thought that what we procured together, like in our nice democratic nation, was the best perceivable product, right? And if there was mistakes, we would point them out and we would already know them. So we didn't need anybody to tell us what we did wrong. The problem is that we were so tunnel visioned, and that is actually one of the big problems in my career in general. Like I will always like subconsciously like tunnel vision on certain concepts, like stupid examples being like laning or like the fucking golems and crux, where everybody like gets annoyed that I talk about them because I want to maximize that.
Okay.
Like right, like I will spend like time maximizing that one little aspect and pure laning and every level up timing. But what if some other guy like Mithy says like, you know what, screw laning, I'm just gonna learn how to play the map. All I care about is getting to the map part, and then I'll get through lane just like randomly. That's more efficient, you know, later on. But yeah, we weren't as coachable because we were all very convinced in our ways that we were right what we were doing, and nobody could really like correct that. And the biggest wake up call was like split push season 3 Fnatic. Like we kept grouping every time. It's like, guys, group on Peke. Oh fuck, Soas is pushing top. Okay, go to Soas. By the time we get there with 4 people, he walks away, and suddenly our bottom inhibitor gets destroyed. Like we couldn't fathom the concept of how to deal with split push, or we would do it too late. Like, oh, we're behind, just wait and group, and they tore us apart in those matches. And like looking back, that was just it. You know, failure to adapt is the reason we fell. Failure to adapt is like one of the reasons I got stagnant in my career at multiple points. And yeah, that's why you go up and down, because you just realize like, oh fuck, like I was too tunnel vision. I gotta change the way I think, gotta change the way I approach the game, see if that finds a solution.
In Evil Geniuses, I mean, I noticed in the interview earlier on, like you've multiple times kind of like defended Yellow Pete and explained how good he was, etc. But I remember when Yellow Pete exited the lineup and Altec came in, who was supposed to be the strong mechanical young player. At the time, it felt like you yourself were kind of on board with that. You thought like, to some degree, I've never been like let loose, you know, as a support, because I've always had to play this safe style. I mean, you were looking forward to that, right?
Yeah. No. Again, it's whenever like things go bad, you look at other people and see what you can solve. And at that time, our bot lane wasn't working anymore. Me and Pete, like we tried to improve it, but there was no way out. Like no way to fix it. Right? Our progress was slow. So I welcomed like the breath of fresh air and having like a super like more mechanical player at the time come by me. And I don't think Pete was very good at that time. But I think people forget how good Pete was in season 2. That was like kind of the point I was trying to make, because season 2 he was one of the best AD carries in the world. Like, sure, you know, Doublelift may have better like ultimate pure like clutch mechanics in a time, but Doublelift and Chauster would always push you 24/7. So we just sent Snoopy behind them and killed them. Like, okay, you know, I can push you 24/7, and if I die, I can blame the jungler. I mean, that's a style we can play, but we didn't play that style, so.
At the time, okay, here's the thing. At the time, we didn't have a lot of the terms that we've now got to describe roles, etc. So even though people think it's a derogatory term, when I say clean up AD carry, what I mean is like you're not supposed to be the superstar AD carry that the whole team's based around, but you do your job, you're in the right positions, and some of these guys are obviously very good players. I mean, a great example I always think of is that guy San from OMG. He's playing in a region with all like the god AD carries, and he was winning LPL and doing very well because he knew how to do his job without having to be the star. So okay, I can accept that Yellow Pete was a good player in season 2. But what I want to ask in this particular sense is, if you'd ever thought to yourself, say you'd done a Froggen, okay, and you'd thought to yourself, okay, well, I've played with Pete for a long time, but, you know, people, okay, because here's the problem, Krepo. People, as a result, associated you with the style of CLG.EU and Yellow Pete, so they thought, right, well, Krepo isn't a good mechanical player, and he's just a player who has to play safe. Whereas, obviously, I mean, I've seen you play solo. You can obviously play stuff like Thresh and be very aggressive. So I'm sure you thought to yourself at one point in time, you know what, I'd like to play with some of those AD carries and see what I would be able to do. So you got to play with Altec, obviously not for that long, but you got to play with Rekkles as well.
Yeah.
What did that style of play actually suit you? Would you like to have played more as that sort of a support player where you could be aggressive in lane, or you could have a dominant lane?
Oh, I really enjoyed playing aggressive in lane and trading in. Like that's where I kind of found the love to like really look at the laning more and find like every little like little things like knowing exactly which creep you level up on, knowing like base timings, gold timings. That's something I learned from Altec. He was like, okay, this guy's sitting on this much gold right now, right? That's something I never used to think about. Like only think about myself, but I never thought like, okay, what does this guy need? He wants 200 more gold. Like, can we, for his BF sword, can we force him back so he ends up on a pickaxe, for example? Like those little things. Like I loved laning with Altec at the start, and it went really well. I think we were a strong bot lane. Like in scrims, like we used to like do really well. There was a time where we even like consistently beat Doublelift and Aframu. Not all the time, but there was like a 1 month period where we would just be better in bot lane. There was also a month period where we just got absolutely stomped by them, but there were times where we were really good bot lane. But I think in the end is like when things started going down the hill for the team, the best players again, like Altec and Pobelt, are starting looking at us as all replaceable. Like Inox is doing bad, we need to get rid of him. You know, Snoopy is a remnant of the past, let's get rid of him. Like and it changed, right? They got Helios in. But it all went down in such a manner, like kind of behind the backs, you know? Like a lot of these roster changes, also because there was no open communication, as much as we would like to, went kind of behind people's back. I'm like 90% sure if Lustboy hadn't joined TSM, he would have taken my spot in Evil Geniuses.
Just because the other Korean guy, they already had Helios at the time.
Yeah,
right?
Helios, Pobelt speaks Korean, Altex likes Pobelter. And I told them, but the thing is I told them during that time was like, you know, if you guys think I'm boosted, you know, if you think I'm bad, just tell me to my face. I'll play out the season and I'll be gone, like legitimately, like just tell it to my face. And that was the biggest regret, and that's why I was so angry when I left, because they never told me to my face, even though I like asked specifically for it so often. Like I don't care if you think I'm bad, dude. I know people fall off. You know, maybe I thought I was way better than I ended up being, but I wasn't, or I was. I don't even know. But like I just wanted to be told to my face, and that's where a lot of the salt and aggression like kind of came from. But yeah, so Altec and I, in terms of laning, I think we're very strong at certain points, but it kind of fell off. And the second your AD carry loses trust in you, yeah, you're done. Like you don't work anymore as a bot lane. Just doesn't stick anymore because people stop talking. They stop giving like what they perceive as like trivial information, but like people talking generates more people talking, right? Like if I hear 3 of my team members talk, I am more inclined to join that conversation. But if the air is completely dead silent for like 2 minutes, like am I really gonna add in like random information here and there? Probably not. And that kind of spirals downwards, and it just ruins team communication.
So when you left this team, and you did this Facebook post, which it was clearly salty in some areas, but justifiably so, because when you hear some of the circumstances, some of the circumstances are kind of fucked up. I mean, you're referencing some of them here. I mean, the famous one that everyone will remember was the idea that Altec was sleeping in a stairwell instead of a bed in a house, you know, like that sort of a scenario. When you say that, okay, here's the problem. Maybe I'm unique in this sense. I never really had huge expectations for Evil Geniuses NA in terms of as an org, because I remember looking at it and remembering the weird circumstances where, because it was kind of something where Alex Garfield was trying to get around like the rules of could he own a team, couldn't he? I always thought in my mind, right, I'll just label that in my mind as that's Velocity still. And so as a result, when I see all these problems, I'm like, well, that makes sense that a Velocity type team will have those problems. The real problem is that when you see Evil Genius's name, you think, right, one of the biggest orgs in the world, amazing resources, can pay, you know, over the odds. I mean, I remember some of the stories of the StarCraft 2 players for Evil Geniuses, like missing a flight and getting another one business class. You know, they had crazy resources. Obviously, this League of Legends team did not have the same access to that, to the Evil Geniuses' influence and power that you think of if you think of just the name, right?
So like I don't know how specific into details I want to go here, but it was Alex Garfield was not involved in the day-to-day at all, because the rules stated, right, that the Garf was not Garfield, don't call him the Garf, was not allowed to be involved. And he like as much as people believe that he was like secretly puppeteering behind the scenes and managing it all, he kept his hands off it, because like he runs like multiple disciplines, multiple esports. He doesn't need to get caught like crossing a line, right? So he really respected that barrier. So it was essentially Evil Genius's branding and funding for, I guess you could call it Velocity as an org. And I don't think there's no point going back and listing all the stuff that went wrong. Sometimes I wonder, should I have like not made that public? Some of those things. The main reason I did was because there was so much like perceived blame going to me that I felt like, yeah, guys, you gotta hear the other side of it. But because I have a big brand and a big name, it kind of went so far that it was only my side all of a sudden, right? And like that's never healthy either. So I don't want to dig in too deep into that anymore. It's just a lot of things could have avoided, and a lot of things could have been better. And there was more potential left in that lineup, I feel, especially at the end.
Without obviously blowing any names that might upset people, did you ever get a really good offer for you personally where you could have joined a team that went on to like win LCS or do something super duper well, and like it's one where you couldn't have known maybe at the time, but nowadays you think what could have happened?
Not up to that point. Not up to that point where I left. So like obviously we were regarded as slightly lesser players. So like we got out of CLG.EU/EG Europe, got to EGNA. I didn't have the most stellar performance. I don't think people spoke that highly of me. The only reason I even continued pro play was like because I thought I could still have it in me. Especially towards the later stages of season 4, I think. Yeah, yep. 4. When we had that really good run, everybody's like, haha, EG went 4-0 in that week. I just think that was probably the best performance over 4 games that I've had in my life.
Okay.
So I really feel like I could do it, and it's also like I just stopped caring there. So it's like, you know what, fuck this team. I'm just gonna play my own style, see what happens. If you lose, whatever, people hate me anyways. If we win, nice, we can end on a high note because we won't make it anyways into playoffs. And that's what happened. Went 4-0, I felt good. And at the start of Split, I had a couple of interesting offers. Not sure how deep I will go into it. There was a good chance that I could have started in Spring Split in some of the teams that were looking for supports, because at the time, so Spring Split Season 5, you have to remember, this was a time where YellOwStaR was good, but his laning was weak. Mithy was the big question mark coming back in, and Kasing was a no-name back then.
Yeah.
Whenever somebody asked me, I was like, Kasing, please, I'm way better than that guy. Obviously proven wrong by now, but at the time with the information. So I felt like there were no good supports in Europe, and I could actually perform because I didn't think at the time that this performance at Worlds was good. So I was like, you know what? I had a really good week at the end of at Season 4, and I felt I had it in me. And I almost made it into certain teams, but for various reasons, it didn't happen. And then I waited, and then I eventually joined Elements.
So how was life on the Elements carousel, where one player gets on, one player gets off, but the ride keeps going around, right?
Yeah. Elements just had a lot of problems. That ship was already sunken. I thought we could get it back afloat, but that ship was sunken. You had to go for the hard reset there. And it didn't really work out after. And I think it's just, yeah, it's rough. It was just rough. Like there was a lot of underlying tension, social problems, infrastructure-wise, very, very, a lot of short-term band-aids, right? Problem, like try and fix it, but not with the long-term in mind at all. I think with the long-term in mind, certain changes should have been made way earlier or differently. And people weren't happy, weren't functioning, and then, it doesn't matter, dude. If you feel like sad or depressed, you're not going to have a good team, regardless of what players you have. Because they all have, like, talent. Like, if you look, like, Shook's allegedly back on the market right now. I've played against him in solo queue. He's an absolute fucking monster sometimes. Froggen is still Froggen. Tabs can always get back. Rekkles, for me, is a fantastic player overall. So that lineup, just, like, the way it botched, like, it should have been way better. But didn't come out.
I have, in my life's experiences, okay, as I've grown older, I have learned that obviously people have quite particular tastes about whatever, music, movies. And what I've learned is an interesting phenomenon is, okay, I'll give you an example. Okay, I'm probably never going to like the music of the Grateful Dead, right? This like acid rock group from the 60s, because when I listen to it, it just doesn't do anything for me, okay? But if I talked to someone who was really into that music and they were really passionate and really good at articulating themselves, the way they would describe it, I might never get into it, but I could almost like, it's almost like I could connect with whatever they were liking about it, because the way they like give me a different perspective on it or what they were seeing in it, okay? So likewise, in the interest of being entirely fair here, let's imagine that Rekkles was the Grateful Dead for me, because you know what? just someone where it's never connected with me. I've never got what the deal was, where the hype was that this guy was so amazing, okay? Because again, I mean, just in terms of categories, to me, he's never played like a hard carry role. He's never been like a star player. He's been someone where I can see his talent is he could be a superstar player like that if he had like the mentality, the killer instinct as it was. But it's more like, I've always felt like in his best teams, he's played kind of the luxury role. Like, he's not had to be a star, but he has the talent to be, and therefore sometimes he can be, and he can be this crazy get-out-of-jail-free card you've got. But a lot of the time, he's just playing a role that usually I would assign to a less skilled AD carry, or someone who doesn't have that mentality. So, explain to me, explain the Rekkles thing to me. What is it about Rekkles? What's good about him? What are his strengths? What's he like as a person?
I mean, he has like an incredible, like, so the strengths of him is that he has an incredible work ethic. He's willing to put in the hours, for one. Two, like, he's still very young, you know. He has the, I think he has really good mechanics. Laning against him, I categorize players very often by people that I can like flash play hook on Thresh. Like, you know, I'll flash forward, flay them backwards, and then hook in the same direction like as my flay, right? And very often these guys, they will panic click backwards and they get hit by the hook. Rekkles, among very few, is one of the guys that will sidestep the hook and fuck me up. Did that multiple times, which is why I respect him. Forgiven is one of the same players, and maybe Freeze, but like other than that, I didn't really see too many like AD carries that could actually do that. This is like some minor example, but just to put it in context, just really, really good micro mechanics. I think he can be good in lane if he has the suitable support. What I think the reason he like has never shined that hard is like Fnatic never played around him this year around bot lane. Like Rain over ganking bot more than twice, like more than once, like never happened. So yeah, like you're the product of your team play, I feel, and I think he excels a lot at the cleanup AD carry style. I think he's a good cleanup AD carry for sure.
Excellent, yeah.
Excellent at the style. Whereas people compare him very often to Forgiven, and well, I have a lot of respect for Forgiven. Forgiven is the ultimate example of a tunnel vision player, because I've tried to reason with him so many times. I love doing with him, by the way. Like, I consider him a friend, but like Forgiven is like the double of the season 2. Like AFK push you into the tower and then complain that the jungler comes around to gank you, right? Whereas the whole reason some other AD carries maybe not be as far ahead is because they respect the fact that the jungler may show up. They may drop a couple CS, right? It's sometimes too simple to camp Forgiven. Very often he actually gets out of that with mechanical outplays, because that guy doesn't drop a single CS. Like I think in terms of CSing, Forgiven is the best god in the world, like way better than Rekkles. And Rekkles is good at it, like, but Forgiven is just insane. I just think Rekkles has never been catered to play a carry style very well, and it does require practice. I don't even think he needs to. I just think he's super solid and a strong player. When we laned together and we went for the more like mechanically like all-in type of plays, they worked out a lot. And if they failed, it was mostly due to my engage timing or not being on the same page or my mistakes. So I just think he's like a constant, dude. He's either he starts at a 7, he starts at a 6 or a 7, and he can go up to an 8 or a 9. Like he will never dip below that, and that's what I just respect a lot in AD carries. Like very, very few mistakes in like getting outplayed. That's why I just respect him a lot as a player.
If Forgiven had the right team around him, like to support his style, to, you know, like to play very well as well in the same game, could he legitimately challenge like the best players in the entire world?
I don't know. Like, I don't even know what Forgiven's style is anymore. He drastically changed it though. Like Forgiven Gambit is different than Forgiven SK. I mean,
I'll let you in on an insight you probably know. Forgiven didn't really want to play that style in Gambit, and he wishes he could go back to the old style. So yeah. it's not broken yet, I don't think, Krepo.
Yeah.
If anything, I think your original point was correct. He will never change his mind from the fact that style's correct.
Yeah, it's very hard to convince him. I've tried to talk to him, and he's just very set in his ways, and I can see it, you know, and I can respect part of it. Then maybe I'm wrong in some of my approaches, but yeah, the way you fit in Forgiven in a team is like I mean, Forgiven in Alliance could have maybe worked, right? Like, just go like 5 super mechanical players that just rely on literally being significantly better than our opponents. Then usually in a game, like you flip 3 weighted coins, 2 of those lanes will be winning every game because they're just better. Yeah, and then you push all the time. And if jungler goes bot, well, then your jungler goes top, and you constantly win out. And eventually you just smash them like that. That's the way like SK played on 3 lanes, pushed them all the time. Won at least one of them. Freddy was like solid, and then Svensker invaded, and that's how they like won a lot of games. You
once told me a really interesting Yeah, like you gave me a really interesting perspective on Forgiven quite early, actually. You know, the first streak he had in SK where they were winning every game and he was like unkillable? You actually made a really interesting perspective I didn't hear anyone else mention, which was it's almost like because everyone else was so cognizant of the fact that Forgiven's the one owning the games and he's the star player of SK. It's like in team fights, every other player from the other team went so balls deep trying to get Forgiven. And if you notice, one of his strengths actually is an AD carry is he's like a guy who understands that he can never die if he's like the main carry. He will just bait you in further and further, and he'll just keep backing out, and he'll never do the double lift thing where you go right into the center of 5 people and try to kill them all spinning around like Neo or something. He'll just bait you out, and you'll look like an idiot. He'll just kite you the whole way out. I mean, can you expand on this at all? Because I mean, when you said that, it actually made me. I could see it when I watched all the games. You know.
Yeah, when he plays, he's very aware of what his teammates under a perfect situation could provide for him. Right, like especially when Unrated plays like Lulu support, like he will factor that into his decision making. A lot of AD carries, they play as if they're playing normal, and then get slightly surprised by the fact that they have this backup. Now that Lulu comps got more common, we saw more AD carries adapt to that. You know, where you had Rekkles solo carry game. Niels, you've seen that do that too, but Forgiven is just so aware of his environment. So you the only way you kind of kill him is to get him into a situation where there are only bad decisions, right? Get behind him with enough people that he simply can't escape no matter what mechanical play he makes. And that's the way you beat those like mechanically gifted players, right? Just like put them in situations where there is no way out, no matter how good you are. But like what I admire about him is that he will push you in front of your tower and he will be, God, it's so annoying to lane against that guy because he will just dodge your hook reactively. Like most people don't step into hook range because of the fact that they can be hooked, right? When they hit a tower. He will keep hitting that tower and he'll just be like, yeah, I'm just so likely to dodge your hook reactively that I can just keep doing this. And that's the way he gets ahead. Like he can dodge skill shots reactively. He has one of the best reaction speeds I've seen on any AD carry. Most people dodge predictively, right? I think you are like 80% sure to hook to the right. Just like most sports, I'm going to step left. Oh, okay, I got you. Now, very often he waits for the skill shot to come out and then dodge it. Like almost like scripting. That's one of his strengths. And then like stutter stepping. Can't call it orb walking because then Reddit gets like annoyed.
Yeah, all the pedants will come out.
Yep, even though we all know what orb walking means in this context. He stutter steps very well. So like he's just very aware of his positioning in fights and knows how much damage he does and what people can bring to him. That's why in a lot of these SK styles, once they started grouping up, people kept diving in on him, but he had Lulu buffing up, he had Svensker and Freddy peeling for him, Freddy just playing a tank, annoying the backline, and he would just like kite away and just, fuck people up. It's very enjoyable to watch when it works.
In Season 3, when Evil Geniuses weren't able to win LCS, weren't able to qualify for Worlds, one of the people who got a lot of criticism was Froggen, because if you remember, that was like not just an assassin meta, that was like assassin meta on steroids. Every single assassin just snowballs the whole game, and anyone who's like a Nuke Duck, Bjergsen, Expeke is going to have the time of their life. You know, they're going to look amazing when they wreck these games. And obviously Froggen, even when he played assassins, he still played him like Froggen, you know. Even his fizz, he's not going to mad snowball the game. He's going to get ahead and he's going to build his advantages, but he's still Froggen, okay? So it was obvious as to why people criticised him then. But in Season 4, he was having like MVP performances in both of those splits. He was playing very well a lot of the times when Alliance was good. In Season 5, obviously Elements went to shit, and so now people say, you know, he's washed up, he's done. Is there any truth from someone who's played with, against him, and seen him over the years, is there any truth to the idea that like he's stuck in the past in how you play midline? Like he's too stuck to the idea of that safe style and not trying to like get solo kills and try to be very aggressive in lane beyond. I mean, he will obviously harass people, but that's still to get creeps, you know. Is his mindset at all stuck in the past, do you think? Is there anything to that?
If I'm honest, the only thing that I'd list as like a fault and what I dislike about him, or not dislike, what I think he could improve on, is just that he like, there's certain mid laners, you know, shit's going on the minimap. They're not quite sure what's going on. They'll click on the action and figure it out along the way, and they're already moving. I think, personally, Froggen's the type of player that will finish his wave, then maybe start moving. Or be like, has the mentality of cross-mapping. Oh, I can't get there in time to help. Likely, in a lot of scenarios over time. Therefore, it's better for me to clear this wave and go for this empty wolf camp and at least even that out, you know. A plus for me, a minus for them. Still equals out. And even on like certain assassins, like even like when I watch his streams sometimes, like, okay, you can't judge from that, right? Because it's him having fun. Yeah. But I think that's one of his flaws, where he just He just wants too much at once, and he's not willing to sacrifice enough to roam and like help out the team or initiate plays that could maybe set him behind down the run, because he knows if he's even, he will get ahead, if that makes sense. And that is one of the flaws I think Froggen has, but overall I don't think he's bound to any meta. I think one of the reasons Evil Genius suffered even though Froggen played Assassins is because when you play Assassin comps again, you know, you end up split pushing. Like, they're not team fighters, right? We ended up team fighting with Assassins, and then it's probably not the best idea in the world. So yeah. But yeah, if that's one flaw, I would give to Froggen instead. But I think he could easily like make it back into like mids. Like, if you watch him play, like, he's smart enough. Like, he understands all the matchups. He's one of the few players that can play a champion that he hasn't played very often before and be good at it. That's when I know like he was a better player than me. Because when I play a champion I haven't played in ages, like, I feed my ass off. Like, I went to Riot Dinu, but I had to play with like entry-level players that went like just joined Riot, and I picked a champion I never played before, and I fed against like a gold player in mid. Okay. Arguably, you know, I wasn't playing serious, and arguably I had different gear, but like, that should never happen.
It's still embarrassing, right?
Yeah, Froggen would never feed there, right? So I have a lot of respect for people like Faker that could just play like any champions. Like, okay, list me the kit. Okay, I've seen this used against me. I have a rough idea of the cooldowns. Okay, let's play it.
Do you think that beyond strategy and how a team's coached and all that good stuff that obviously enhances and emphasizes how good a team and the players look, are there actually Western players where you think they really are as good as the best Korean at their position? Are there some that really do stand up to the test, or at least they could definitely be there if they had all those other things around them?
It's hard because they don't speak the same language, you know, so it's like such a weird like question to fill in. Right now, currently, I mean, I would like to see Forgiven speaking Korea, working in an org, if he would listen to the infrastructure. Yeah, sure. I mean, Froggen, at times, if Froggen spoke Chinese and he went to China like season 3 or 4, easy. I think he could have gotten around there. Bjergsen, at his peak, I think was close to the top players. Like, maybe, like, there's a difference though. Like, if you talk about like mids is like top players, like, do you mean top players or do you mean like top players and Faker? Because Faker at his peak,
I mean, Faker's different, right?
Yeah.
He's the ultimate. That's why I called him the ultimate outlier. It's like, it's almost unfair to compare anyone to Faker.
Yeah, so like if we're talking like top level players, yeah, there have been some Western players that maybe had it in them. I mean, earlier seasons, like season 2, Doublelift was one of the better AD carries. Like Wei Xiao in China was then the best probably in the world, and better than the Koreans, right?
Yeah. Okay, so along those lines then, I mean, I probably should have said Asians for that instead of Koreans. You're right, actually, on that last point. So along those lines then, you've kind of hinted at it there, but are you also someone who thinks that, like, I mean, Faker's magical, right? He's not even like a League of Legends player. Somehow, I mean, the guy's been playing for over 2 years now, and he's still in his prime.
Right? But he's still good.
I know. You know, we can't all be gods at that, but is Faker something beyond other players?
Especially season 3 Faker, I feel. Like, that's when I was the most impressed. I think he was farther ahead of everybody else then than he might be now. But he's still ahead, right? Don't get me wrong. But like the first time I watched Faker play, and I'm gonna admit, like, when I got to Worlds season 3, I was obviously playing a lot in America, right? So I didn't watch enough Korea. So I heard about Faker, but I never got to see him play. So whenever somebody told me, Faker, oh my god, Faker, play Faker, when Monty would say that, I was like, yeah, whatever, dude. This guy might be good, but then I watched him play. And Faker, it seems as if he played the game in half speed. Like, everything for him was moving twice as slow as for everybody else. That's how quick he made his decisions. Like, I have a couple of stuff in my head when he played the Gragas mid. I think the decisions he made, how insane. He makes plays that when I pause the screen, right, and I look at what's possible, he'll make plays that I don't see. Or when he duels the Ziggs, he knows the exact cooldown when the bombs comes up, so he moves even before that guy casts the bomb. You know, when you're in a duel with the Ziggs will be spamming Q. Whenever it comes up, he'll cast it. Faker will move like, either reactively because he's on 8 ping and he's really that good, or slightly even before the guy casts his bomb and he knows where the guy's going to cast it. So he's like outplaying you within these frames. Like the famous Z duel, you know, where he moves real lands on his own shadow and stuff. Like all these like little minor plays, it takes people a couple of seconds to process what the right decision is. Not only does he do that in that half or 1 second, he does it and executes it at the same time. And that for me is like, bonkers. I don't understand how. Like, I don't get it.
What is it that got to you, Krepo? Like, in the course of this interview, I've realised what's changed since the grilled interview I did with you a long time ago. I'll describe it like this, okay? You remember that scene in The Dark Knight Rises where Bane's like, "You fight like a young man, nothing held back." Like, you know, like, before, you were quite cocky before, right?
Yeah.
You thought you were the shit. You thought you were pretty good. Now it feels like you've gone too far the other way, mate. Like, yeah, be reasonable, you know. Now you're always talking like, yeah. Well, I mean, I guess back then I probably thought I was good, and you know, maybe I did. Maybe I was terrible. You know, it's almost like you've gone too far to be humble now. You were a pretty good player, right? You're still pretty good even in season 3. Probably still decent in season 4.
Yeah, most like it's twofold. One, if I make any offensive statement right now, I will get so much shit for it, and people already hate my casting. So I'm just like, you know
Okay.
what? You know what? It's not worth it anymore.
Okay.
2, the fuss that it brings doesn't get the value for being like super controversial.
Okay.
And 3, like you learn your mistakes down the line. Like I was so blind to my mistakes, dude. I still think I'm pretty good sometimes, dude. That shit I pull in solo queue, I like, don't get me wrong, I could still play in NA LCS right now or ELCS and be a support player. Like I legitimately think that if I put in the time, I can get around. I won't be top 3 anymore, and that's like the difference. Back then, I always thought I could be top 3. And for me, if you're not top 3, you might as well not play in your role. If you don't think you can challenge top 3 or maybe top 4, as like, and you don't believe that anymore, you might as well like do something else.
There we go. We got it eventually. I got the quotable. If you don't think you're top 3, you might as well not play. Okay, he's back.
Yeah.
Krepo's back in the room.
Like if you really want to hear that, like I play like right now, but like if I look at like mithy, if I look at mithy can sing and just how smart YellOwStaR is about the game, like I gotta yield, dude. I can't like challenge that. And then like, yeah, but like with 10 teams in Europe and 10 teams in NA, I think I could easily still be an LCS level player. If that's like, if I need to say that, but I'd rather like go back in time and like admit to some of my mistakes, because people otherwise would be like, oh my god, Krepo's so blind, so passive aggressive, such a little shit. And like I'm so tired of hearing that I'd rather just be like, you know what, here's dude, like this is where I went wrong. I tried not to call too many people out along the way, done that enough, and yeah, I try to like grow up, you know, figuring it out along the way.
I don't know if you agree, okay, but I'll admit something here, Krepo. I'm a heretic, because I think YellOwStaR is one of the best Western players of all time. Like, he's a fantastic shot caller, seems to have an amazing grasp of what the coach wants and what to do in the game and what situations to do. Even seems, in terms of as a support, like great at understanding what to do on the map. But I am a heretic in as much as everyone else goes like, yep, we agree with all that, but then we also think he's a god in lane. And I'm like, whoa, no, definitely not. Like, that's the part where I pass out, like, you know, like I'm like, if anything, you look at his history, that's why he's ideally suited with either someone like Steelback, who's never going to be super aggro anyway, or Rekkles, who his style is that's not his style either. So what do you actually make of YellOwStaR? What's the complete package, like in laning and everything else?
He got better at laning though this season. I have to like, I was one of the biggest YellOwStaR critics coming into this season, calling him overhyped, because I respected him in terms of shot calling, but I didn't think his laning was that good. He actually improved a lot in my opinion. But then like kind of stagnated because Fnatic just didn't play around bot. Like we don't even know how good he is at laning, because like Fnatic never went bot. So you would think with communication on jungler and support and a working environment like between Rekkles and YellOwStaR, that should be good, that you would play around bot lane sometimes, because I know you could make Rekkles carry. So I don't know why they did it. Maybe Huni could not play passive, you know? You never know. Like there's multiple reasons why you wouldn't play around bot. Like maybe because your top like needs the help and the value there is greater. But no, I would never categorize YellOwStaR as a great laning support, but laning, especially this season in bot, is overrated anyways. Because why would you be good at laning? You're just gonna get TP'd on and die every time, or it will neutral out. Any advantage that you have, say like you're a 5 at laner, 5 out of 10, the guy's an 8 out of 10, it evens out for every teleport that enters the equation. Like, yeah, you're fighting 8 against 5, well suddenly you're 6 against 7.5, and then like you're 7 against 7 because there's 2 TPs coming down. And the aggressor always gets punished, because you get TP'd in from behind. The first TP wins, and Fnatic was so good at TPing, so like you don't even have to lane in bot lane. That's why I hate a TP meta. I really hope it changes, so we can. There's such a beauty, dude, in laning 2v2, like 2v2 no jungler. It's like final destination, no items. Let's go. Like there is so many, like it changes everything. The way you manipulate waves, timings, you go in, you burn people, like you actually flash aggressively to zone them out of lane and freeze them off later. And I don't think that's where YellOwStar's strength is, but it doesn't matter, dude. Like that guy, the shot calling he brings and the way he has molded teams, I just can't not respect that, because I could never do it.
I mean, what you said there about like the kind of the beauty of 2v2 laning, that's why in a world where you could really have proper 2v2 all the time, well, most of the time, obviously the jungler's allowed to come in sometimes. That's why the dream for me in Europe would obviously be if you could put Mithy with Forgiven. Because these guys can just find 2v2 situations to make a fight, to push it. I mean, they're just unreal at it. What do you think about Mithy overall? Because if you remember when he first came up, he was obviously really good, but he did seem to have some sort of issue in pressure games, or something did go a bit nutty after the laning phase. You know, he was a bit off in that sense. And then obviously, unfortunately, in Season 4, he had the whole ban issue, and then he was stuck in Challenger. And so it looked like he was never going to ever make good, you know, because actually, people don't know this. When he came back for Spring Split, he couldn't get into a lot of the teams. He was actually asking some of these teams, can I join, please? And they were like, no, we don't want you. Whereas obviously now, he's considered one of the best supports. What do you make of Mithy now?
So like many layers in that question. Let's go back to the start. Mithy Season 3, right?
Yep.
And what was it? Not NAP. I was Lemon Dogs, right? Yeah. Really good aggressive laner. One of the few supports that would dodge forward. Like you predict the hook, this guy's gonna walk back into his lane. He's gonna walk into it. No, Mithy would walk forward, and like you're now a trading spell down, right? You use your hook. He has everything up. Okay, you get fucked. Like he plays Fiddlesticks. He was really good Fiddlesticks support. He was just a beast at laning. But the irony is when I asked Mithy about like his opinion about the game coming in this season, he literally told me laning doesn't matter, dude. I don't care. Like there's no value in it at all. It's all about the map play. So he kind of changed as a player. Like we don't see Mithy and Niels go for solo kills, right? Like I don't perceive them as like a laning like powerhouse where they try to like abuse the enemy and kill them over and over. It's almost like people respect Niels and Mithy so much that they try to gank them, and Mithy and Niels have such a good game sense that they dodge it. Like so many situations where they sniff out the jungle and then they waste their time by just like being close enough to the brush, but just like, you know, they're waving the carrot in front of the horse, but like, they're never gonna let him get it. So he changed his style, and him and Amazing were the best support jungle duo in the West, I feel.
Okay.
This year, so it just changed completely. But I do think if it goes super lane oriented meta, and he gets the proper like tips, because every support finds these little niche things that you can do that nobody else thinks of, but he talks to some other people, he can adapt them really quickly. Like if you tell Mithy like, yo, like I even told him a little trick on Thresh that he didn't know and he started doing, so like he can execute them all because he's smart enough, like he thinks so. So I think Mithy might be the best supporter in Europe right now.
So you referenced before, like, you think people don't like your casting. Now, I think I know one of the ways in which it is, Krepo, because it's one of the things that when I've watched, I am like, man, he does go on about that a lot, which is you seem to have some sort of fetish about support build paths. Like you would always, here's the thing, sometimes you make really good points. So actually, first and foremost, I want to ask an actual example so you can give us some insight on this level. So if you remember at Season 4 Worlds, one of the things that you would always go on and on about was like, you know, this person here upgraded the Frost Queen's claim when they should have finished Mikhail's, or the other obvious one was against certain comps, they just wouldn't build a locket, whereas you could see that would have been a massive help for them in a certain team fight. Like, people who are ignorant would say, well, you know, that guy's matter, he knows way better than you. But in some of these examples, when you pause the game, you've got a good point, actually. He would have won a certain fight here, or he could have cleansed this guy at some point in time. Is there a reason why elite level, amazing supports aren't seeing some of these things at the time or whatever?
I really disagree with you, which is like one option. That doesn't make any opinion invalid though, right? Like you can have two people like have...
Sure, absolutely,
that's one. Either it is because like what we can't factor in when we're commentating very often is like base gold. Like I don't know what that guy was sitting on when he went to base, like what he's building brick by brick. Maybe he feels like he's under pressure and he needs that little item right now to like keep in the game, and then eventually ends up upgrading it differently, or he just doesn't respect the big picture, right? Like I know exactly one situation is like they had a team comp that was like playing max range and poke, and the only catch on the other side was I think it was an AHQ player that had a Thresh hook all the time.
Oh, you mean EDG versus AHQ?
Yeah, could have been
when they lost because of 2 Thresh hooks going on to Nami.
And I'm like, if that's the only thing that team has, right? Like it's the only catch I believe that game had was Thresh.
Yep.
Only hard catch, and your composition, the only counter to it is hard CC. From a big holistic point of view, you build a fucking Mikhail's, right? You negate the entire catch potential. Thresh hooks, like the hook gets cleansed, this Thresh will proc his hook and walk in, but you're moving backwards already. You can flash and pull that guy in to the back of the fight. He's dead by the time his team reacts. Like, yeah, you're 5v4, the game's over. Stuff like that. Like, that's when I yeah, I get passionate about those things. And the reason I talk so often about these things is because my level of knowledge goes way deeper in the area of support. So I feel I can offer information that nobody else, in terms of casting, in that particular niche subject can offer. And like, why would I regurgitate something that somebody else could offer? Why not find something really unique and niche that I can offer? Like, I spend hours like thinking about maximizing how to do golems and krugs, and the difference may only be 10 HP that you come out of it, or 0.5 seconds, but that can be enough to get an extra creep, get another level up timing, and kill the guy in lane. No longer, actually, since it seems Riot changed their minion algorithms and they all die at the same time right now, and there's no RNG. But like, those little things just fascinate me. That's why I just love talking about them.
If we had it, say League of Legends was at the level of like a game like the NFL or something, where you can have not only coaches, but you have different sorts of coaches for different types of aspects in the game. If we could have Krepo as like a support coach, and all he does is like get the new guy in, like talk with him about the meta, like figure out smart, would that be a role you'd like to do if it was ever possible and you could make good money doing it, etc.?
Like, if I could live my life in like
a great lifestyle, good money, and you're just the guru. You're the Yoda of support.
I don't know, if I could live my life, if I could live the same year like 3 different ways, that's something I always wish that I could go back in time, because there was a lot of, in my career I had a lot of crossroads where I could have went X or Y. Like, I could have got into casting a year earlier. I could have kept playing for another year, get that dirty esports money. I could have like went streaming. I don't know, like I could have got coached. Like, an LCS organization at the start of Spring Split offered me to coach them, and I feel like I'm so happy I didn't, because I would have changed the entire history of time, I think, because they got a better coach in the end, probably the best coach in the West.
Oh, I can see where this is going. Okay.
So really lucky I didn't take that offer, because people were scrambling for coaches back then. But yeah, like, I would be interested in seeing if I could be a lane coach. The only thing that would maybe work against it is, again, you know, I'm so not tunnel vision, but I do like my own opinion once I put in a lot of time. And to be a lane coach, you kind of have to be super open-minded, right? And do a lot of research and find out what other people are doing, rather than perfect your own style. That would be the only thing against it. But yeah, I would love like going over like 0 to 50 minutes laning phase constantly. See what you could have done different, like step up here, zone this guy, challenge the CS, move up here, trade cooldowns. Like, that's one of the most fascinating subjects for me in League, to just go like in depth, is like, people think ability X counters Y, but then they don't factor in cooldown by the time you use the second time, because a stronger ability is always on a longer cooldown. So if Y counters your X, trade him and then go in again, because your X will be up again and Y will not be. Example, like Morgana Thresh, you know, you hook, he black shields, fine, you're countered. Your hook is up 6 seconds earlier, so now you have 6 seconds where you can like completely demolish the opposing Morgana, and you can use that to zone them. Stuff like that, like really nitty-gritty into the laning, is just, yeah, my ballpark.
If I could get some sort of alien technology and I could keep everything about you, your brain's going to stay the same, but all of a sudden you look down and you've just got the body of like Mad Life. Like, you've got the most insane Twitch mechanics ever. You have like all the mechanical skills. So you have the exact same brain, but you have like the ultimate mechanics. Would you dominate the game from support?
In the current landscape?
At any point in time.
Oh.
You think you could have just been a god?
Well, then I would have been Mad Life, right? Actually, I don't know how much Mad Life was in Season 2, how much it was brains and execution. Because I feel like every move that he makes, I don't actually categorize Mad Life as a Twitch player, like Clutch. I think he is a very predictive player. Like, remember all the big Mad Life moments? They're not mechanically difficult, right? Like, all the highlight clips that you've seen, canceling a Zac jump, for example, that's not Twitch. That's knowing that the Zac is likely to gonna jump this way and you flay him out of it. Like, hooking an Ezreal after Arcane Shift, that's not clutch, because you send that hook there before the guy shifts. That's predictive. Like, he's just so good at reading the game. When he did the Q flash, when that was still available, you could flash in the Q animation and go over the wall. He would Q flash over the wall, send out the Q, the guy would panic, flash straight into it. Again, that's not clutch, that's all predictive. Like, Mad Life, I think would be, yeah. I think you need more brain for support than you need mechanics for one, but you need the mechanics to back up the brain. Like, if you see the play but you can't execute it, yeah. I would categorize Mad Life more as a brain player than a clutch player, but he just also happened to be a great clutch player.
Okay. When people talk about like the different history of esports and stuff, everyone who retires who's a pro player always says in their interview, by the way, like, yeah, I'll still definitely stay around esports, you know, I'd like to be a coach or something. But you'll notice there's not that many positions available.
Yep.
A lot of them do just retire, or they do something for a little while and then, you know, real life beckons and they go do something else. With how many years you've been around it, and the fact that you do have a position obviously in doing commentary, and actually I imagine if you ever stop doing that, there would be coaching positions available if you wanted to do something like that. Maybe you could even play again. Let's not close the door on that entirely. Do you think you could Krepo still be around esports in like 10 years? Is it possible?
I certainly hope so. So in terms of my career, and one of the motivations for me to quit, like I think I could have easily played for 2 more years, right? But I sincerely doubt that would have made it 2 worlds. The best thing that could happen for me was end up top 3 in one region. This is like the ultimate like honeymoon experience, right? End up 3rd place, go to worlds, get into groups, get smashed. The second I like realized that and I got the closure I needed from being in elements, I wanted to move on, take step 2 in my career. Like I made this little drawing on the whiteboard the other day. It's like you make a line of like, I don't know, like 20 centimeters, and you make a tiny line underneath of like 4 centimeters, like 4 centimeters, that's your esports like player career. Like 20 or 30 centimeters, that's like how long you're gonna work in your life, right? So you gotta look ahead. So I took step 2, which was commentary, and at the time, a lot of people wanted that. Is like, why isn't Krepo casting? Oh my God, you should do this full time. Yeah, Krepo. And then that kind of changed. But yeah, so that's step 2. My goal right now is to figure out step 3. How long will I cast? 5 years, 10 years? Only one game? Do I go to different games down the line? Am I good enough for that? If not, like, what can I do in esports? Because esports is growing, and there's so many like companies, startups that you could join. You could go into like coaching. You could also go into behind the scenes. Like you don't necessarily have to be a coach, right? You can be more of a life coach too. Take care of players, because there's always going to be a game with young talent coming in that needs some guidance. Maybe one day, you know, that can be me if I'm done with casting. So the current goal for me is to figure out in the next year or year and a half what my step 3 might be, and then like so slowly plan my career that way. And
when you say that you people don't like your casting and that sort of thing, I don't think it's like overwhelming. Like I don't think you're hated. Okay,
it's a minority, a very vocal group, mostly on Reddit and some like Twitter fanboys. I even shouldn't be talking about this, dude, because
so when do you look at Deficio, for example? He's now super overwhelmingly loved, but he was actually very harshly criticized. In fact, people used to be like, I can't understand what he's saying, you know. It's going to turn around for you, right, if you keep doing it.
Yeah, I saw progress already in my casting. More like technique and just like when to speak and when to shut the hell up. And most importantly, Deficio like completely supports me. Like he thinks I do a good job, and like he likes, like he's like a bro, totally. He's like, yeah, dude, no worry, you'll get there. Constantly work on it together. And like I have a good understanding of the way like Reddit works as well. People eventually get tired of hating you, and then they start liking you again, and then they get tired of liking you, and they start like disliking you again over time. It goes in like
it's a cycle.
Yeah, it goes in these little waves. So I think a year from now I'll be fine. Like I'm gonna work hard on like being more understandable, enunciate better, listen to other casters, and like get the technicalities down. So I don't think I'm too worried on that. I just want to touch back on like the whole career thing real quick.
Okay. Yeah.
That's one thing I really hate about some players, and that's what I'm gonna try. Like now that I'm actually like within Riot, is like try to motivate some players to build their brand, because they're not all of them want to work in esports, right?
Sure.
So that's fine, you know. If you don't want to, like, then it doesn't matter like how many like Twitter or Facebook or people watch your stream. But like so many of them don't even know what they're gonna do next, and they don't use their golden years to build up their reach, because I don't know. I feel like I'm a decent name in esports because I put so much time in like reaching out, finding a public that likes me, and building my social media. And then like if you look at like a player like Kasing, for example, he should be easily, if he stays in the top scene for the next 2 years, transcend me, right? Become a bigger name than me. But then Kasing needs to start like using Twitter and Facebook and like streaming and just communicating with his audience. And that's like one of the messages I'm going to try and like, that's one of my goals this year is like try and get more pros on that board. Not like practice less, do more branding, but just incorporate it along the way. And because that just like, it just irks me, dude. When I see like, or like Rekkles, I just get, like such a good like brand already for like zero effort put in. What if you put in just a modicum of effort?
Yeah.
He could be like twice the name, and he could have as a lifelong career potentially within esports with doing something you like. And that's like, yeah, just I don't understand it why certain people don't pursue it as much.
Since it's one of the things where in season 3, especially going season 3 into season 4, you're a pretty chubby guy.
Yep.
You're someone who clearly, I mean, you come from Belgium, you obviously like those fries and mayonnaise, which, by the way, I can agree, they're wonderful. I've been there many times.
Yep.
But now that you've started working out, you've actually like lost a lot of the weight, you're looking in shape. Is this like a permanent thing? Like, I'm going to be so sad, Krepo, one day if I see that you've like relapsed and you're just going crazy and you pizzas all the time. I'm going to be so sad inside, Krepo.
No, I think it's permanent. Like, dude, I had no idea of what like calories were. Like to sketch the time, like in Evil Geniuses in the time, because things weren't going that well, I was like bloody depressed. Like, esports, as like nice as it sounds, if you're not in the top 3 winning teams, that shit can get very depressing very quickly, which only makes the whole team environment worse, which is one of the reasons like that I don't regret quitting playing, because I'm just so much happier right now. And yeah, dude, I was like drinking 4 cans of Coke, 3 cans of Monster, and 3 Stellas every day, for a period of 2 months. Like, that just like messes with you. So like, I don't think I'll go down that path again. I think I'll be in relatively decent shape. Maybe not as hardcore like as I'm trying to get right now, but like, I don't think I'll ever relapse to that point. Maybe like when I become a father or something and I have to stop caring. So hopefully
you have to stop caring.
Yeah.
Okay.
Once you get kids, you ain't gonna got time for that shit. But yeah,
Okay.
I think hopefully this will stick.
Okay, do you have a final message for anyone who watched the interview?
If you actually watched until this point, congratulations. Not many people do it. You're probably reading the TLDR on Reddit right now. Yeah, thank you for watching. Bear with me. I do try to improve my casting. Sorry for being a passive-aggressive, salty little kid sometimes. Trying to work on that. And yeah, tune into my streams sometimes. I still stream League of Legends and do commentary on support. And since I'm getting really bad at the game, it's easier for you to bridge the gap to me than any of these good pro players. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
What is the stream name?
It's twitch.tv/scumbagkrepo with a K for scumbag.
Okay,
Cool.
thanks.
Thank you.